one put any thought into balloon launches for manned flights like they've used for satellite launches. Here is a diagram of the proposed luxury balloon experience. You will launch, obviously, from a launch pad. You'll go about 100,000 feet, so not quite 20 miles, a little bit under 19. And then you'll be in sort of space for a couple of hours, and then it will take you gently back down to Earth and land in the ocean, where you will then be retrieved, looks like by a fishing boat. I'm sure that'll be pretty fancy as well. This is in comparison to the SpaceX launches that they're trying to sell. Blue Origins, I think, is trying to do the commercial space experience as well. But this is actually a much gentler, much safer, and much more eco-friendly way to experience outer space. This is their website. It's called Space Perspective. This is very dramatized, artists' interpretations. It looks really neat. I think if I were to go to space, this would probably be the way that I would like to do it. You don't have the jarring of, lift off and all of that. You just kind of go up in a balloon and you go higher than most balloons normally go. And you're up there for a few hours, kind of looking around. I guess there's a bar and snacks and a bathroom in the little pod. So I think it looks like a neat alternative for getting to space using a balloon instead of a rocket, and we'll see if it takes off. They're going to have their first launch, I believe, in 2024. Let's see what happens when we try to book our flight. So I'm trying to book my space flight. Your wait to fly will never be shorter. We'll see about that. So over 300 seats already reserved for 2024. 2024 is sold out, but you can still book for 2025. So Space Explorer, an individual, is $125,000. So if you have an extra $125,000 just laying around and you want to take a gamble on possibly going to space in a balloon,
Covenant House is dedicated to helping those 18 to 24 years old who have nowhere else to go.
92% of young people exit our programs and live independently, permanently.
Gay youth, straight youth, any youth that meets our criteria that doesn't have a safe place to live is welcomed, period. At the end of the day, you save somebody's life.
This is a hydrogen balloon instead of a helium balloon, which is historically not as safe, but helium is rather hard to come by right now and used for much more important things in tourism, such as medical devices and things of that nature. So they decided to use a hydrogen balloon instead of helium, even though it's not quite as safe, just because it was more readily available for them. I'd like to think this is what space tourism would be like, as opposed to the, straps and harnesses and rockets and all of that. So yes, this is what they're doing right now, or planning on doing in 2024. But this is not a new concept. Launching things into space using balloons has been around for a very long time. So let me introduce you to the concept of a raccoon.
What do you call that thing?
Well, we call it a raccoon, a combination of a rocket and a balloon.
And it first goes up in a balloon, and then from there, up in the air, it's automatically shot off to go higher. Is that the idea?
Correct. Yes, with a very inexpensive rocket now, we can get above 60 miles altitude.
This concept has been around since the 1950s. The tech was developed by James Van Allen of the Van Allen belt. In his experiments, balloons would lift rockets into the air about 10-mile altitude, and then at about 10 miles, the rockets that were lifted into the air with the balloons would ignite and continue on to their journey. This concept did not go too well at first. He had some problems with the rocket components actually freezing as they would get higher and higher and up in the air. So he had the scientific idea of getting warm orange orange juice and packing the rocket, the sensitive areas of the rocket with warm orange juice and insulation to keep it from freezing, and that worked. And his technology and his raccoons, in 1953, his raccoons and their science payloads detected the first hint of the radiation belt surrounding Earth. You can see here in this image the beautiful, this is, dramatized and an artist's interpretation, but the radiation belts around our planet were discovered actually using raccoons. So using raccoons for science, or, balloons for space tourism. There's a lot of alternatives for getting to space besides just ground-based rockets. Most of the rocket's weight is the fuel, and most of the fuel, a lot of it's used to get off of the ground, because the closer you are to Earth, the heavier the gravity, so the more rocket fuel you're going to need to get off that lower altitude. And there's also this problem with rockets where, the more fuel you have, the heavier you are, so the more fuel you need to compensate for the weight. So coming up with other ways to get to space besides just ground-based rockets is definitely worth investigation and making a video. So another idea for getting people into space using balloons is a raccoon mothership. Now, this is actually an image. This is not an artist's interpretation. These people actually built this and did an experiment. The high altitude launch, though, now keep in mind this is not a new concept. When we first broke the sound barrier, right stuff. The test crafts were actually dropped from larger ships. So this is not something new, dropping one thing from one thing. We have the aircraft carriers in the ocean, and from those ocean aircraft carriers we launch things. So this would be very similar to that, but it would be higher up, so that you could get your launch not as a little higher off the ground, so you wouldn't have that extra intense gravity to deal with. This company is JP Aerospace. Now, they proposed a permanent airship held up by a series of balloons. So you can see it here, just kind of holding it up. JP Aerospace, they had a contract with the U.S. military to develop this apparatus airship to hover over battlefields. They thought it would help them with communications and surveillance, just kind of having it be like a mobile, I guess, war airship base or something. And it could also be used to then launch other apparatuses even higher into space. Now, at the moment, JP Aerospace is providing commercial film footage for things like weddings and commercials. They will also take your ashes, your cremated ashes, into space using a balloon. So they didn't quite finish up their airship, their mothership just yet, but hey, you have a nice little alternative for your ashes someday. I love this cartoon. They used to launch rockets from all the way down there. Isn't that like launching an ocean liner from Kansas? Yes, it is. Just like launching an ocean liner from Kansas. It's completely unnecessary. There's no reason to do it other than the fact that, that's what we've been doing so far. So hopefully that will change as long as people keep asking questions and wondering about different possibilities. There's hope. Now, after researching this wonderful question about launching people into space using balloons, this led me down a path of rocket alternatives, shall we say, because rockets are probably the most environmentally hazardous, inefficient, most dangerous way you could possibly get someone to space. So using balloons will hopefully be something in our future. Space balloons. Would you go into space on a balloon, or would you rather go on a rocket?